Our median student this year across all grade levels grew about 91% more than expected in math and 117% more than expected in reading over the course of a full year.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our latest episode. This is Aryeh Eisenberg from Edu-Together, and happy to be back with you. We have a very special guest for our podcast today. Dr. Dan Sturdivant, the head of virtual instruction with OptimaEd, is with us. And Dan, thank you so much for being with us today. It's great to have you, and we're really happy that you were able to spend some time talking with us today.
It's my pleasure, Aryeh. Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure. Right back at you. So, Dan, let's just start off a little bit. You have a very cool title, Head of Virtual Instruction. I saw that when we first kind of met each other on LinkedIn. That's a title, especially doing what we do with virtual education. It caught my eye. But for those people who might not be familiar with virtual instruction or OptimaEd, could you just give us a little bit of a background as to what you do and what this role entails?
Yeah, happy to. So OptimaEd is a virtual experience company. We started our foray into virtual learning in 2021 with a 0 year and some pilot programs as we worked to launch the world's first school of record that meets in virtual reality. And so we launched that in the fall of 2022. We ended that year, 2023, with about 140 students, and we're going to open in 2 weeks with almost 650 this year. And so,
oh my goodness,
we've had a really tremendous response to it. But essentially, every student receives a virtual reality headset, and starting in third grade, the bulk of our live learning and our social hours, our house system, our clubs utilize VR in a way to learn together that you just can't do in other mediums, especially for those age groups when social cues and social development are such an important part of the learning process.
Wow. Talk about the world of education changing as we speak. That is incredible. We throw out the term, especially in today's world, virtual reality, and we've all seen the headsets, although I don't know how many of us have actually gotten to use them. What's the typical daily experience like for a student who's enrolled in your school? How does it work? Do they put on the headset in the morning and then just kind of go through their day in their living room, or what does it look like if I'm a student in a school like this?
It's a great question. So we have a pretty traditional school calendar. We start about mid-August and we go through Memorial Day with breaks throughout the year. But our live learning happens between 8 and noon, Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
And then in the afternoons, we have a 2-hour tutoring block, Monday through Thursday. It happens in Microsoft Teams, where students can, in small groups or individually, meet with their teacher and get any extra help or any reinforcement they need. And then Fridays we use in the mornings for professional development, and the afternoons are office hours for our faculty and students. But during those Monday through Thursday live learning blocks, there are 4 periods, depending upon the age and grade of the student. The periods are anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes. 45 is the most common. And in that time, they start in teams and take attendance. So we make sure everyone's there, is up for a day of learning or a period of learning. And then if the lesson calls for it, they'll jump into VR. Now, there are some lessons that we don't. Obviously, if we're giving an assessment, most of the time that's not in VR. If we're working on handwriting with our 3rd or 4th graders, we do still teach cursive in 3rd through 5th.
Okay.
Some of that we actually can do in VR, but the vast majority of it is done out of it. But I would say about 85 to 90% of our courses spend about 85 to 90% of their time in VR during the class period.
Absolutely incredible. Wow.
And then we get a little break in between each class period, get them to take it off, move around, get outside, get a drink of water. So the actual screen time is really not too much. It's a really effective way to learn. And so we've seen some great results out of it.
So talk to us a little bit more about you just mentioned it's an effective way to learn. I imagine a lot of this is still kind of new. Even for the home consumer use, while my children wish this were not the case, we still don't see a virtual reality headset in every household or on every television suite. So I imagine for a lot of your students, this is the first time they're really embracing the VR world. What type of results are you starting to get back? You said that this is, I think you said this is your third year in doing this. So I'm imagining by now you're starting to see some trends and you're starting to see some data. I'm sure it's a very exciting time for you guys. What kind of information is coming back at this point?
Yeah. So first, students really like learning in VR, which as I'm sure you can imagine, kids do enjoy getting to be in VR, but families like it too. Based on the results we're getting, our re-enrollment rate for our charter population, our public population was between right around 90% actually.
Wow,
year one to year two.
That's incredible.
But our median student this year across all grade levels grew about 91% more than expected in math and 117% more than expected in reading over the course of a full year. And so
wow.
we've had really good results with it. I may get myself in trouble here with some of your viewers with I know that learning styles is not a popular thing to talk about. I don't love to talk about it as hard and fast truth, but I do know that students have a preferred way to learn, right? And they will tell you you prefer to learn in a certain way. And one of the fun things about a VR lesson is that no matter which way you prefer to learn, that's going to be available to you. You're going to have a visual, an auditory, a kinesthetic stimulus, and you have the fourth avenue towards memory of location. We have about 250 different locations. Most of them are unique to us as an organization. We have a development team that has built them. And so, with 175, 180 school days, you could go through a whole year and never learn in the same place twice.
There's a lot of virtual field trips. So that's for sure. Give us some examples. Like, what are some of the really popular locations that students get to travel to virtually?
Some of our most popular locations are ancient Rome. We have a bazaar that was built for our middle school English course that they read Arabian Nights, and so they do a discussion on that in a bazaar that's from the time period. We have a World War I trench that we've actually built a whole separate field trip experience in.
No way.
Think wow. Kind of 1917 and that one continuous shot. It's a very, very cool way to learn your introduction lesson to World War I. One of my favorites is we have a virtual gallery space, an art gallery space, and our lower school students, especially at the end of the year, they do a big art show, and so they've created all of this 3D and sometimes interactive art, and their parents can then put on the headset and go to the gallery and do a walk and see every student introducing their art. And showing them how to engage it, which they were.
That is really cool. I remember in the old days we lugged around the portfolio cases. No need to do that anymore. That's really incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you see? You mentioned you're working with elementary school students all the way up to high school students at this point, or
yes. Yep.
And do you see what we'll talk about the teachers in a second, but how do you find the learning curve to be for the students? Because obviously this is still different for them. And I know we always say that the students pick up technology much faster than us old people. And that's probably true in life, whether we want to admit it or not. But how do you see that it takes the students, some time at the beginning of the year to kind of adjust, or do they kind of just fall into it pretty quickly?
Yeah, it's a great question. So like any good ed tech teachers, we have learned quite a bit in the last 2 years. And so from year one to year two, we did notice that the first couple weeks of class, there was a big learning curve, especially for our younger students. And it wasn't as much in how to use the technology, but how to engage with others in the technology. You know, 23rd graders in a VR environment that first week, they're going to be pretty excited no matter what. And so we have begun to push that date forward into some summer social hours and some opportunities to meet with their teachers to learn the basics of their controls and how to manipulate their environment and move around. And then we're able to spend that first few class sessions talking about VR etiquette. You know, it is a three-dimensional environment. We want to make sure that everyone is knowing how to engage with their friends and the things around them appropriately, and so everyone's comfortable and feels safe and secure. So we have been able to establish a pretty robust curriculum for that. I would say that the main difference between the kids, especially the younger kids versus older kids and faculty, is that the younger kids could put on the headset and never take it off, and once they do, they feel fine. Right. And the first few times you and I put on the headset, we might want to do it for 15, 20 minutes and then work our way up to get our VR legs.
That's it's funny but true. I remember going recently we were at one of the amusement parks and you go on one of those like virtual reality rides, and there is something when those glasses come or the headset comes off, you have to kind of get yourself back into reality and but I guess if you're doing it every day, it almost just becomes an extension and a normal thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly you adapt, but it's really a fun teaching tool. And so our teachers do spend a lot of time on their own in there because they've discovered how many different ways they can leverage it in the classroom.
I'm sure that really brings up a great point. You mentioned before that Fridays is your day for professional development. What types, first of all, I guess two questions. First of all, what types of teachers are usually coming to teach for this program? Are they teachers that already have demonstrated a strong use of technology in their regular classrooms? Or do you really just look for teachers that you can train from basic all the way up to the top? Because, obviously with a virtual reality experience, we're talking about a whole different type of ed tech than we're normally used to talking about.
We have everyone from people who are in the last 5 to 10 years of their teaching career who see this as, one of the directions education will go in the future and want to be part of building that out.
Okay.
And then we also have people who are fresh out of undergrad or maybe, an MAT program and have a real interest in ed tech, born out of their own experience as a student, during the COVID learning era. So the main characteristic we look for is a willingness to learn, to be teachable and coachable, because it's something that most people, almost everyone has not done before. And
For
so
sure.
there's no one who's going to walk in off the street and be an expert.
That's definitely true. That's I think that's what makes this so interesting. I'm just thinking back to those early days where we said that the same thing about even technology today that we consider to be just everyday basic. I remember I was doing educational technology back when using email was a new thing. This is back in like the early maybe 1999, 2000, 2001. I don't remember, but I remember having to convince my school at the time where I was the technology director that we had to be on doing messages through email. And now fast forward to today where we're talking about teaching in a virtual world and all the great things you get to do, but also the learning experience. What types of things go on at these Friday PD sessions? Maybe could you give us some examples of some of the topics you're covering or some of the activities that the teachers are doing to get to this I don't even know if I should call it a 21st century point, but this new age of education.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been fortunate to have is a really close relationship with Engage, who manages our platform and our servers where our locations live. And so I would say the most frequent topic is when they introduce new features or when they have an update, we often are allowed to pilot it or
Oh, wow.
to be
Nice.
some of the earlier adopters for it. I'm sure there's others who are playing with it too, but and so we find out together how we might be able to use this or incorporate it into a new lesson. Um, but probably equally as often, we highlight a teacher who had a really successful lesson, and so they did something new, they did something
Good.
innovative. They were able to leverage a piece of the technology in an interesting way, and so they were able to affect a new way of learning something. I'll give you an example. You would think that a literature analysis or literary analysis for middle schoolers would be very similar in VR as somewhere else. Um, and I observed a lesson last year where the teacher put a spectrum of agreement on the ground in different images in the location, and they put quotes from different characters all through the trees in this location, and then pictures of those characters from the book. And so first she would read a statement, and they would go and stand on where they did or did not agree with it, and then she would read another statement, and they could change their location. Um, and then the final activity of it was they had to go and match the characters to the quotations.
My goodness.
But then the next class period were characteristics, and so not even quotations, but characteristics of those characters, and building a theme between books that they had read previously. And so who fits into these same archetypes, into these same themes that we've been noticing in this period of romantic literature or whatever it was they happen to be studying. And so students were able to, have a pretty lively debate. They were able to engage with one another, and they could incorporate movement and location and visual stimulus, all with this literature analysis that normally wouldn't be available to you, even if you were using a classroom for that that same activity.
My goodness, we've come a long way in the educational experience. That's incredible to hear. I'm curious. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how long in the virtual world did it take the teacher to set up that lesson?
That's a great question. This is one of our second year teachers last year, third year next year. I think it probably took about 20 or 25 minutes.
That's it. Wow, and probably to do that in a regular classroom would probably take double, triple that time.
Yeah,
and that's
as with many things with tech, it's something that you can save. A snapshot of all of those elements that she added, and so next year when the lesson comes up, she can repopulate it. And it'll take her 2 seconds.
amazing.
But one of the fun things about VR and learning, and especially for our younger students who were trying to enhance their social dynamics and those things that all good elementary teachers are doing, that is inherent in the curriculum, even if it's not explicitly spelled out, is the ability for them to work as a team, the ability for them to learn how to speak up or to disagree politely, and effectively without harming relationship. And an interesting thing that I've observed, and I've said this to many parents, is that there's a lot less social capital that you have to spend if you're in VR than you do in a classroom. And so if you have a student who may have some anxiety, you have a student who may be a little unsure of the answer, but they want to participate, it's a lot easier to raise your hand and offer an explanation, or to offer a different perspective in VR. Because then when you go back to Teams, you're looking at each other, and you just had a fun learning experience that didn't cost you your position in your social group.
Wow, that's a great point, and I think you're right. I know we work with also a lot of students with anxiety issues or different social challenges, and I could really see how this virtual environment would really remove a lot of those boundaries, or a lot of those blocks, I guess you could say, that these students really feel on a regular basis, and it's really amazing. I'm curious, Dan. From a student's perspective, obviously we talked about the newness of the technology and the introduction. What types of support does OptimaEd have to have in order to make this go? Because we see even when you're using basic, what I'll call in old school technology like Zoom or Teams or Google Classroom, whatever you're using, there are always problems that come up, technical challenges. What types of technical support and assistance do you guys have to provide in order to keep this running seamlessly and smoothly?
That's a great question. We have a full-time IT department and some really talented folks who help us to both source and equip and image those headsets that then get sent out to students. We of course have some monitoring and limitation software on there so that they're educationally focused.
Gotcha. I was going to ask that question, but you answered it for
yeah. But more than that, we have a team of subject matter experts for both elementary and middle and upper grades. We have a team of developers who build out these locations that are, amazing and interactive and really draw the student engagement in to each lesson. And then we have a faculty who I'm biased, but I think they have one of the coolest opportunities in education.
You don't have to be biased about that. I think that's clear from this entire conversation. This is amazing. These are amazing opportunities.
It's really fun, and they get to be very innovative. They still get to build great relationships with their students. They still get to build great relationships with their colleagues, and they're not fighting traffic to and from a school building anymore.
That's true.
They're not on lunch duty. They're so there's not that we don't all love lunch duty or recess duty or all those things, but there's
okay. You can say
yeah. So, but there are differences to what they're doing now. They get that time back to reinvest in their craft, and so a lot of our faculty have expressed that the opportunity to continue to enhance what they're doing, and the time that they have freed up with still a work-life balance to be able to get better on a consistent basis is really something that they had been missing with all of the demands of, especially if you're in a large public setting where many of our folks were coming from. There's a lot that has to happen that is necessary, but it all takes time.
Well, I think you bring up such an interesting point because we're as we all know, we're dealing with a situation now where we're seeing teacher shortages. People are leaving the profession in droves, and it sounds here like this type of environment might be a way to convince more teachers to stay in the profession, which I think is so important for our future generations. You're showing that, wait a second, it doesn't have to be a 14-hour workday. It doesn't have to be all the parts of the job that we really don't feel the appreciation for and that we don't really want to be doing. It sounds like this could be really the future, not just for the students, but also for the teacher population, which is really an amazing thing.
When we post an opening, we're very, very fortunate. There's no shortage of applicants.
I'm sure.
So yeah, we've been very fortunate.
That's incredible. We're almost out of time here, but I just want to ask, briefly, if a student is interested in being a member of this school, what's the process? Can any student in the U.S. apply? Are you working with certain areas? How does a student join the OptimaEd family?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So, in states where we have education savings accounts in the U.S., we have worked hard to get listed as an approved education provider in those states. So we are on that list in places like Florida and Arizona, Oklahoma, Idaho, New Hampshire, etc. So if your state has an ESA program, there's a very, very good chance, in fact, 100% chance that we are available to you.
Okay.
If you are in a state without an ESA, we have many students who come in on a tuition basis.
Okay.
And so to apply, it would just be going to optimaacademy.online, and there's an application tab, and we would be able to help you right away.
Amazing. I think, Dan, this is really, we talk all the time about what the future of education is going to look like. And unfortunately, sometimes that conversation leads down a darker path. But I think what you've talked about today really shows us that there is a bright future and is a positive future for education, which is really something that is so refreshing and so exciting to hear. Like I said before, we're always talking about not having enough teachers down the road, not being able to educate our students properly. But I think what you guys have created here really is a change to those, or a solution to those issues. And I think now we think about attending school in a virtual environment as well, like I'm wearing a headset. And I'm curious to know, Dan, and you may agree or disagree, but I'm thinking now, as I hear you describe this experience, that probably in another 10, 15 years down the line, this might be the typical school experience for many students. And it sounds like there are a lot of advantages to going in that direction.
I think the future is bright for virtual learning. I really do. It's there are endless possibilities to what you can learn, where you can learn, how you can engage with people from around the world. We have every once in a while we'll look to see where our students are logging in from. And as you can imagine, many of our students who are choosing to learn virtually travel a good bit. And I think our high watermark so far is we had students in 5 different countries at one time logging in.
Wow.
And being able to interact with one another. And we have a very robust student culture at school. I've got a director of student success and a head of school who have done a tremendous job building out a culture among the faculty and among the students. And so there's a lot of interpersonal learning that goes on in addition to the academic learning. That's a real value add that I don't think gets talked about enough in virtual learning, with being able to bring students from different walks of life and areas.
I know from experience with the work Edu-Together is doing, that's always one of the most challenging parts of our job, maintaining that culture, maintaining that social aspect. And it sounds like you guys have done such an incredible job to make that happen. You mentioned you have a head of school, a director of student success, and just having those positions in there and having people responsible for making those opportunities for the students and seeing them through. It really is, we're talking about a different educational experience, and that it's such an incredible, it's refreshing to hear what you're doing, Dan. And I really appreciate you sharing it with us. For those people who would like to get more information, would you mind just repeating the website again? And we'll put it up on the screen as well.
Thank you. It's optimaacademy.online.
All right. So for those people who would like to get more information about Optima Academy, go check them out. This really does sound like the future, the next generation of education. I always say to my kids, Dan, I have 2 teenage sons, and I always tell them, who knows what education is going to look like when you guys have children. And I think you've just given us a glimpse into, I think my answer to them is going to change a little bit, because now I can say, I have an idea of where it's going. And it really is an exciting experience to hear. And Dan, thank you so much for being with us today. It was really great to hear about the amazing work that you guys are doing at Optima Education. And we really wish you the best success in the coming school year. I think your students are incredibly lucky to be part of such a unique educational program. And as they say, the future is bright, and we're looking for great things. So thank you, and continued success to you and your team.
Thank you, Aryeh. I appreciate you having me on, and the great questions and the chance to share about something that's been so exciting in my life and career the last several years.
Well, thank you. And for those people who would like to get more information about our podcast or would like to check out some of our additional episodes, please visit us at www.edutogether.org, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you back next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.